Welcome to another episode of Franky D Crafter. In my storytime video, I had my players fight a giant squid, but sadly, I built the squid before I had a channel. Luckily for you, I feel like my skills have improved, and I can possibly teach you how to make a better one now.
Hello, you've reached the house of unrecognized talent. Please start after the...
Ever since I can remember, I've always hated making the same project more than once. It's always been a pet peeve of mine. I've put this video off for long enough. But I won't teach you how to make the same project I made 2 years ago. There has to be a noticeable improvement for me to be interested in the project again, if that makes sense. So for this video, I'll also talk to you about what to keep in mind while sculpting. Little details I've learned from the past 2 years. First, always have a reference. I can't stress this tip enough. Look up as many images as you can. Looking things up will also help you pick up details that you like from other images. The idea is to combine all of these details to make something new. Nothing is original anymore. The trick is to combine as many things as organically as possible to make it seem like you've created something original. Another thing is to think about pose, and try to make your work as cinematic as possible. At least when it comes to things you're gonna use on your table. I like to feel like my monsters are in action and they're not just sitting around. Always try to take advantage of found objects. Try to build a good skeleton for your work. Never underestimate the power of aluminum foil. It's not just a tool to texture. It also makes a great filler to make sure that you don't use a lot of your sculpted material. And talking about sculpted material, we are using cold porcelain here. I've always talked about why I love using this material. Check out DM Scotty's video on how to make it. I will say that as much as I love to use cold porcelain, it is a pain to make, and it's not always guaranteed to be consistent. I'm pretty much down to my last batch and I'm dreading the thought of making more. But when it comes to strength, nothing else compares to it. Except, I also use some green stuff, which would be the only other material I trust strength-wise, but it is costly, so I try not to use a lot of it. Green stuff holds detail extremely well, so I mainly use it for parts that I know I'm gonna be detailing. This is the step I hate to follow. There comes a time in the process of the project where you will be faced with a tedious step. You know the step. It's the step of repetition. The step where you have to make the same thing over and over again. I say don't get lazy here. Power through it because a lot of the time, this is gonna be the most important step. These details are usually the details that make people want to pause and really take a look at your art. For this project, it was definitely the suckers, or whatever these things are called. I should have done more than just visual research, I guess. Whatever, too late. I made the first batch with green stuff, but it proved to be very annoying. So on the second batch, I used the cold porcelain. A lot faster and a lot less frustrating. For these steps, it's best to have a small distraction in the background. For me, it's music. I can't get through a project without music. Just make sure your distraction isn't too distracting. One of my biggest flaws was to never think about how I was gonna paint the sculpture. There would be times where I made something really cool, only to realize that there were areas on it I couldn't reach with my paintbrush, so technically I wasn't able to paint it properly. This really sucks, so always keep in mind how you're gonna paint certain areas. For this project specifically, if I glued these 2 extra tentacles on it from the start, I won't be able to paint it properly. So we're gonna be attaching them after we paint them separately. Now let's talk about the painting. This was by far the most intimidating aspect of my process. I would always compare my skills to others and get scared. Don't do this, and if possible, try not to think this way. It would potentially ruin what would have been an enjoyable project. And this doesn't just apply to painting. This could apply to drawing, sculpting, you name it. A better mindset to have is, I can't wait to be that good. But you won't get there before making a few mistakes. The only way to get better is to keep working on those skills. Every time you make something, try to make the next thing that much better. I think art loses its muse once the artist has nothing left to learn, and every mistake is proof that there is still muse in you. Finally, let's talk about things I learned specifically on this project. Painting in thin layers is key. Make sure your colors have full coverage before even mixing any other color in. I like to get all my base colors on before I start blending. Also, wet blending goes a long way here. Don't be afraid to freestyle some designs. One of my favorite parts about the build was actually the dark purple spots on top of the head. When it comes to water effects, don't forget that Mod Podge works wonders. I love this stuff so much that I even went back and added 2 more layers of it to my sea mats, and I like them even more now. I thought about repainting them, but instead maybe I'll do a seaboard or something. I don't know, maybe. Lastly, make standalone tentacles. I didn't have the time myself to make them for this build, but that's something I love about the original Squid build. This is a great cheap way to make more miniatures, and to make the encounters a lot more interesting. You can even use them as spells. Go crazy. Let me know in the comment section below what some of your hobby fears are. Things you might find intimidating. Maybe the community can help you out and give you some tips. Something I have come to utilize, sorry Eric for using that word, is the community. I actually take a lot of notes from my own patrons, especially the ones on my Discord. I like to think that 50% of my project is owed to them, not only in support, but also in advice. That's gonna be it for today's episode. Like always, thank the patrons. They help out in more ways than you might think. It's only because of them and their support that I am able to make these videos to begin with. Please consider joining the madness that is my Patreon and help keep this channel going. Alright, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!